it certainly appears as if we're near a very major bottom. I think we're there, okay? You could see some explosive moves in gold shares and gold and silver very shortly.
Here at Liberty in Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin Precious Metal Investments. We are standing by the inventory, taking orders into the wee hours of the night and on weekends, because preparedness doesn't stop. Call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty in Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Bob Moriarty, Naval Aviator, Marine, and the author of numerous financial books. We'll put the link in the description to those. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today.
We have some interesting things to chat about today.
Definitely, and I think a lot of people's eyes are on what is happening in the financial system, but we're also seeing geopolitically a lot of conflict there. The Russia-Ukraine war is not resolved yet, obviously, and Finland is also looking to join NATO. There's a lot of things that are kind of heating this up that show that it could turn into a greater conflict and a greater war. Your perspective on all of that going on right now?
We're at a very scary phase. There is no one that I'm aware of who's doing very much to try to end the conflict, and a lot of people are making the conflict worse. Henry Kissinger surprised me because Kissinger came out and said, look, Ukraine, you've lost the war. You are not going to regain the Donbass or Crimea, and you need to give up and go home. Some of the things like Finland joining NATO is absolutely meaningless. But it's very important to understand that this is not a war of Russia versus Ukraine. It's a war of Russia versus NATO. And NATO has had 8 years to supply the Ukrainians, and the United States spent $5 billion. Most of the money was stolen, and that wasn't stolen was wasted. This is the most lopsided war I can think of. The Russians are absolutely cleaning the clock of the Ukrainians.
I guess your perspective then on how this is more of a NATO issue as well, and Finland is looking to join NATO, so this might just exacerbate the issue with Russia as well.
I don't think so. Finland and Russia are not enemies, and Finland is not taking any kind of aggressive stance. What the NATO countries have done is they made a fundamental error, and they believe that they're more secure belonging to NATO. And exactly the opposite is true. It's more dangerous to belong to NATO. So what we're seeing, and this is really interesting to me, and it literally goes back, and it's kind of a carbon copy of COVID, is you've seen maximum stupidity of every government in the world with a real problem. Okay, COVID was a real problem, and to every country except Sweden turned stupid. The Russian-Ukrainian conflict is very serious. Europe and the rest of the world depends on both countries for natural resources, and to make the war worse, it was incredibly stupid and self-destructive. You and I just talked 2 minutes ago. Russia has shut off all gas to Germany, and that's catastrophic. That will destroy the EU, and it literally, Germany might as well turn the lights off.
No, we are already seeing a lot of inflation, and that's primarily due because there's a monetary issue, right? There's for the past 50 years or so, governments have been printing money, and this is expanding the money supply, which is causing this inflation. But as we see these shortages develop and the sanctions take effect and everything like that, we've seen a lot of supply issues that have just exacerbated the inflation. You mentioned with Germany right now, your perspective on all of that, how it seems like inflation is just going to get worse from here.
Well, here's what's interesting. And I had a degree in economics. The actual definition, the old school definition of inflation, is that it's a monetary issue and it's nothing more than expansion of the money supply. Price is going up. It's not the cause, it's the effect. And I just said the governments around the world, their reaction to COVID was so stupid. They literally took gasoline and poured it on a fire. So the inflation in the United States, certainly, which I'm most aware of, all took place prior to the Ukraine conflict.
And if you do look at the national debt, and you do look at also just the money supply, it has exploded in the last couple of years. Your perspective on that, and how we're going to be really feeling the effect of that for years to come?
Well, you can demonstrate this at home. Okay, have you got a 1 gallon or 2 gallon container at home that you could use for a little while? And go down to a gas station, fill up a 2 gallon container with gasoline, go home and throw the gasoline on your lit barbecue. That is precisely what the United States done. When I say the United States, I am most familiar with the United States. Australia did it, New Zealand did it, Japan did it, the EU did it.
As we're seeing the monetary system, the money supply explode and national debts around the world explode, it seems like central banks now are trapped. And that's what everyone has been saying. And we're seeing people really questioning the credibility of central banks is now in question because it seems like there's no way to go. Your perspective on that?
No, that's absolutely correct. And I've been asked the question for years, what do you think about the latest numbers from the central banks, what the central banks are doing? I said it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. It is baked into the cake. They are going to fail. Another, 10 days or so from now, the Federal Reserve is going to increase interest rates 1 full percent. Okay, Canada's already done this. That's a scary number. That is an absolutely terrifying number. And what I think a lot of people agree with me, or actually, I agree with them. I didn't invent the theory. I think that Federal Reserve is going to jam interest rates 1% higher. The stock market's going to puke all over itself. And then the Federal Reserve is going to turn around and start dumping more gasoline on the fire. There is no good solution. This is the end of the financial system in the West that's been dominant for 500 years, and it's going to be incredibly destructive. Most people are going to lose most of what they have. It's not a good time to be in debt. It's not a good time to be borrowing money. It's absolutely not a good time to hold stocks or gold or anything on margin. And everyone's going to get hurt. And what you're going to want to do is get hurt the least. But some of the numbers for what gold and silver could go to, if the Fed does a U-turn and stomps on the accelerator, there's no limit to what gold and silver can do, because the real key, and it's what everybody forgets, when you're talking about the price of gold, what two commodities are you talking about?
Gold and the U.S. dollar?
Exactly. Okay. Now, the U.S. dollar's been on a run lately. It's the highest that it's been in 20 years. The EU, is the lowest it's been in 20 years. Not the EU, the euro. The euro's down to 1 to 1. The British pound is down to $1.18. These are catastrophic because much of the debt in the world is dollar denominated. But if the Federal Reserve blows up the U.S. financial system, and it certainly looks like they're about to do that, the dollar is going to go to zero and the whole thing explodes. So talking about $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 gold is as meaningless as trying to quote gold in Zimbabwe dollar. Okay, it is not gold going up. The value of gold doesn't change. It's the value of the currency that you're talking about that does change. And we're going to see some catastrophic moves. Everything that I'm seeing, every interview that I've done for the last 5 years, I was wrong. It's far worse than I ever imagined possible.
No, it does seem like what we're seeing right now is, well, largely what you predicted with respect to the stock market at the beginning of the year, that we have been seeing a sell-off in the stock market, and it possibly is going to turn into a crash here. We're also seeing a sell-off in the metals. I wanted to get your perspective on that, why you think people are also selling the metals as we're seeing a downturn in the stock market.
That is a good question. The answer is quite simple. When the margin clerk calls, what do you sell?
Anything that you can.
Thank you. You knew the answer. You didn't need me to answer it. And strange enough, if you look at the COTS and if you look at the sentiment indicators on both gold and silver, it certainly appears as if we're near a very major bottom. I predicted that 10 days ago, and I think we're there. Okay. You could see some explosive moves in gold shares and gold and silver very shortly, but it's all connected. I mean, gold and silver didn't go down. What happened is the margin clerks called and said, okay, you need to meet a $10 million margin call in the next 5 minutes, or we're going to sell all your positions. The guy said, okay, sell all my positions.
And that does seem like that's typical when we do see a market downturn. However, I've heard that this time around, we're actually seeing more strength in the precious metals this time than we did, for example, in 2020 or 2008.
That's true, but the sentiment is virtually the same. There's a sentiment indicator that I use that sets the sentiment on the gold indexes is as bad now as it was in March of 2020. And I will remind you that I called the crash in March 2020 extremely accurately. I had predicted it 6 months before. I wrote pieces the end of January, said a bad crash is coming. I wrote pieces the end of February, said a bad crash is coming. And yes, silver actually got down to below $12 an ounce. But what did it do in the next 6 months?
It skyrocketed higher to, I believe, about $30.
Exactly right. The Dow Jones from 1929 to 1932 went down 89%. Between 1932 and 1933, it went from 41 to 108. It advanced 163%. So when you have these catastrophic crashes, you have these extraordinary climbs out of there. I think everyone is going to be quite surprised at how high. I've got a lot of mining stocks that are down 80%, and they're still good stocks. They're just down, but I expect them to more than recover. I think it's a great time to be in mining stocks, and it's a great time to have gold and silver. I can't think of anything else. What would you want to be in? Bitcoin, bonds, Tesla. There's so many bad investments right now that it's really easy to pick good investments.
It is very interesting what you're saying, because it seems like we're probably going to continue to see a downturn in the general stock market, but you're looking for a reversal soon in precious metals and the mining shares?
Yeah, I don't think we're anywhere near the bottom in the general market. The general market is so overblown, and it's overblown because of all this money that's been poured into the system. And the same thing is true of the cryptocurrencies. There was $3.1 trillion in 10,000 variations of Bitcoin. And everybody said, well, you want to own Bitcoin because it's rare. I'm going, you mean there's 10,000 variations of it and it's rare? Yeah, you want in. Well, that was kind of stupid. Bitcoin and all the derivatives of Bitcoin are electronic beanie babies. And everybody's making the same mistake. They're confusing central bank digital currencies to blockchain and digital and cryptocurrencies, and it's bullshit. The cryptocurrencies are all going to disappear. They're going to go to zero. Central bank digital currency is a different thing, but it's not based on blockchain.
Now, looking forward here, it does seem interesting because when we do look at the precious metals, I mean, it seems like we're in an environment that is, it couldn't be better for precious metals. It seems like a stagflationary environment. So we have a weakened economy and inflation at the same time. So like you're saying, it does seem like we should be turning around sometime soon because the environment couldn't be better for them.
Well, it's not necessarily true that we're going to turn around sometime soon. We just know that we're going to turn around. It's absolutely true. Mark Faber, I'm not sure if you've ever listened to him speak. Have you? You ever heard him speak?
Yes.
He's very funny because he says the same thing every time. In the future, you should give your grandchildren a $10,000 treasury bond so they can put it on the wall. And they can point to it and say, that used to be money. And of course, he's absolutely correct. What would you rather have? Would you rather have a piece of paper with nothing behind it? Or would you rather have something you could hold in your hand? Let me get something. The French Revolution started in 1789. And the direct cause was the French involvement in the American Revolution that bankrupted Louis XV. What currency did they use in France during the Revolution?
Oh, the assignat.
Yeah. Okay. The really strange thing is I live in a little tiny mill house, and on the wall, I've got Confederate war bonds. I've got Confederate money. I've got U.S. silver certificates. I've got MPC from Vietnam. I've got assignats. I've got 50 different reminders of what used to be currency and is no longer currency. And it is as simple. All investors have to do to figure out how profit is. Do they want to hold a piece of paper? Or do they want something real? And the amazing thing about Bitcoin, have you ever held a Bitcoin?
You can't.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's a theoretical value. I mean, it's with a Beanie Baby, okay, at least you had a 79-cent toy that you could hold in your hand. With Bitcoin, you got this, well, somewhere in a ledger, there's something that you put in your wallet and that has value because there's only 10,000 of them because they're so rare. Really? That's like a bad deal to me. And the cryptocurrencies have gone from 3.1 trillion to 900 billion. And there have been more money lost in the cryptocurrencies than was lost in 2008 in the subprime crisis. There's a number to knock you over.
I think a lot of people maybe struggle with normalcy bias and say, well, this time's different with respect to the US dollar. But if you look at throughout history, and I mean, cryptocurrency, as you mentioned, if you look throughout history, whenever there's been a currency that hasn't been backed by anything, it collapses. So it seems like the dollar and, possibly cryptocurrency as well, it'll just play out just the same.
Well, here's what's beautiful. Okay. You can go to Amazon and pick one of those up for about $25. Okay. They're pieces of paper. They're only printed on one side because they needed to use the printer to print more. Some of the things that have happened, we haven't talked about sanctions, so we should at least mention that. The sanctions on Russia are the single biggest geopolitical mistake made in human history. There's 195 countries in the world. How many of those countries have been hurt by the sanctions?
Quite a few, and I know we talked about this last time, but it seems like pretty much all of them but Russia.
Exactly. Okay. And you would think, okay, well, gee, if the sanctions didn't work and it's caused increase in inflation and we can't get gas and we're going to freeze this winter if we don't starve first, why don't we get rid of the sanctions? The Prime Minister of Germany, the Prime Minister or President, I'm not sure what the correct title is, Schultz, came out and said, if Russia gets its way in Ukraine and peace is declared, we're not going to remove the sanctions. And I'm thinking he should be begging Russia, hey, guys, I'm really sorry. We made a mistake. We didn't listen to you when you said you wanted secure borders. And we've decided since we're neighbors, we want to be good neighbors. So we're going to take the sanctions off. No, he's saying, okay, after they win the war, we're going to keep the sanctions. They're doing such a great effect that we need to do more of it. Really? Did you really say that? He did. The biggest chemical company in the world is BASF in Germany. I'm going to tell you that right now they're talking about how to shut down. They cannot survive without Russian gas, period. So we'll leave the sanctions on because they're doing such a great job.
All right. Well, Bob Moriarty, we really appreciate your time today. If our viewers are interested in learning more, they'll find your Amazon author page in the description of this video. Any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our viewers?
The most important thing is don't do anything really stupid. No debt, no margin. Don't be taking chances. Be exceptionally conservative. There are going to be bad times. We will make it through the bad times, and it will be a better world on the other side. It's not going to be any fun going through.
All right, Bob, thank you so much for your time, and God bless.
Okay, thank you. Good show.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.